Welcome everyone to day 4, I do believe it's day 4 now, of Pride on Fogo Island 2021. My name is Trevor Taylor. I am the co-founder and co-director of Fogo Island Pride. And even though you can't see him, as always, off to my left here, I've also got the other co-founder and co-director playing producer tonight. Evan Parsons is here monitoring the show. As we get into our second virtual event of Pride 2021, which is I guess both a blessing and a curse of a pandemic year, or like the product of a pandemic year, that now we've got virtual events as part of our Pride festivities, which is great. So tonight we are going to be joined by, it's not just going to be me here again. For anybody who's used to watching these live streams, as much as I love to jump in front of a camera and talk, we've got two special guests with us tonight as we explore Canada's Drag, a web series that I will say, admittingly and shamefully so, that I wasn't necessarily familiar with until this was actually brought up by one of our committee members. So I'm so glad that actually happened. And now we're going to have an opportunity now tonight to be able to not only watch this great series, but also talk to the producer. And we'll get to that in a second. But before we start, just a reminder that Pride on Fogo Island is going on all week, folks. Today is the last virtual event, but now tomorrow, if you're on Fogo Island, we've got our karaoke coming up at Raymond's Pub in the center of the island, and we've got our Drag Me to the Island drag extravaganza down to the Lions Club at Brimstone Head on Friday night, followed by our parade, our walk, and our community picnic on Saturday, rounding out everything. And it's been a great week so far. So if you've been here on Fogo Island, you've been partaking in all of the events. It's been great to see you all. If you're coming to Fogo Island to participate in what's coming up, welcome and good luck on the ferry, because we all need that when we're traveling on the ferry. So before we start, we do have a land acknowledgement and commitment to reconciliation, which we are reading out at all of our events this year. So Fogo Island Pride respectfully acknowledges the land in which we gather as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk. This culture has been lost forever and can never be recovered. We also acknowledge the island of Uktahumkuk as the unceded traditional territory of the Beothuk and the Mi'kmaq. And we acknowledge Labrador as the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Innu, of Nitassinan, the Inuit of Nunatsiavut, and the Inuit of Nunatuavut. We recognize all First Nations were here before us, those who live with us now, and the 7 generations to come. As First Peoples have done since time immemorial, we strive to be responsible stewards of the land and to respect the culture, ceremonies, and traditions of all who call it home. Fogo Island Pride stands in solidarity with the diverse persons of this province as we search for collective healing, reconciliation, and the reimagining of our social, political, and economic structures to end the systemic racism which further marginalizes Black, Indigenous, and Canadians of color. As we open our hearts and minds to the past, we commit ourselves to working in a spirit of truth and reconciliation to make a better future for all. So thank you very much. All right, so with that, we will get to our special guests here tonight. And I guess as we introduce these folks, we'll pop them into the broadcast. So we'll actually start with our committee member who, once they come on board, you'll see me slip to the back. So we have Michelle Adams here tonight. And Michelle Adams is an animal lover, spoon maker, candle maker, and bartender. Most notably, she is an actor and casting director known for Murdoch Mysteries, Hard Time, and Anxietyville. Born and raised on Vancouver Island, but having spent 15 years in Ontario, she has recently relocated to Fogo Island, like any smart person would, and with her girlfriend and 2 cats. Joining in 2020, she is the newest member at large on the committee which governs Fogo Island Pride. So with that all said, let's welcome Michelle Adams to the stream.
Hi.
Cool. You made it, Michelle.
Yes.
There we go. How are you feeling? You good?
Yeah. Feeling
Excellent.
really good. Excited.
I love to see how you've decked out your back wall there. Is that like a stovepipe I'm seeing behind you, or what is that?
No, it's I forget what these types of flags are called, but
there we go.
A little something extra.
It's lovely, grand. I appreciate the attention to detail.
Yes,
thank
you.
There we go. So you're going to be running the show tonight.
Somewhat, yes.
There we go. Once I get myself out of the way.
Yeah, we're doing this together, Trevor.
That's right. We're always in this together. It's a safe space.
Yeah.
I'm always here if you need me.
Thank you.
All right. And we'll bring in our very special guest now, besides Michelle, although Michelle is special in herself. We've got Peter Knegt. And I'll read out really it's a CBC bio, but I think it accurately sums up his work. Has worked for CBC Arts since 2016, writing the LGBTQ culture columns, Queries, and spearheading and launching a production series. The production, oh my God, I've forgotten how to read and speak. Let me try that all again. And spearheading the launch and production of Series Canada's A Drag, variety special Queer Pride Inside, and interactive projects Queerios, and the 2020s, the Decade Canadian Artist Stop Saying Sorry. Collectively, these projects have won Knegt 4 Canadian Screen Awards. Beyond CBC, Knegt is also the filmmaker of numerous short films and the author of the book about Canada, Queer Rights. And you can follow him on Instagram and on Twitter with apparently an obvious Twitter handle at Peter Knegt. Let's bring Peter into the stream.
Hi.
There's Peter. Hey, Peter made it. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks. I wish I could be there. I've never been to Fogo Island. I'm always been so curious, and now I can't go.
Well, you can go, but we were probably one of the only places that really opened up to Canada fairly early. So, but I mean, welcome all the same. It's great that we can meet in this virtual space.
Yeah, thanks.
There we go. So I'm gonna slip away now in a second. I'm gonna let you folks introduce what's happening here tonight, and probably talk a little bit about Canada's Drag before we start streaming some of these episodes that we've picked out tonight. I guess a reminder to anybody watching now online is that we are going to be taking in your comments and questions. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a Q&A. Michelle has got a long list of questions to ask Peter. But any ones that are rolling on in, myself and Evan are going to be monitoring the comments online. So if you're watching at home right now, or wherever you're watching from, if you've got a question or a comment, pop it into either Facebook or Facebook is the ones we'll see, right? Yes. But Twitter will also work. And YouTube. Oh my God, we're across all kinds of platforms. So we'll be monitoring those comments. So roll those on in, and I'll come back with an update of what's going on there. But I will leave it up to you, Michelle, to kick this off. And well, there you go. I'm just going to pass it all over to you now.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Well, I guess we'll kind of make this a bit of a short introduction to this episode, but we're going to start with the Moncton episode. So I don't know. Do you want to send off a couple words about why this episode is maybe a bit unique, and then we'll go from there?
Yeah, I mean, it's unique because it focuses on Acadian drag, which is obviously not something that happens that often. And the performer that you'll meet very soon in the episode just is really passionate and unique about sort of taking their heritage and putting it into their drag. And they're a very inspiring figure. Chiquita Mare, I believe, is how you say their name. And yeah, I just hope you really like it. It definitely stands out as sort of really representational of like a region, which is what we try to do with the series. So yeah, I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, awesome. Let's get to it.
My name is Irma Gerd, and I live in St. John's, Newfoundland. Irma, oh my God, she's...
Hey, folks. All right, like any good live stream, we're having some technical difficulties. So you get me back again. So while we find the correct episode, which is, I think that was probably a sneak peek now into what's probably coming up next. I think we've ruined it. Although I'm getting a note from the producer here. I'm getting a thumbs up. All right, you don't need to listen to me anymore. We've got the correct episode. Enjoy.
Acadians are the problem child of Canadian history, but in the best way possible. We basically told off our parents. We were like, no, Mom, we don't want to sign with the English. No, Dad, we don't want to sign with the French. We want to do our own friggin' thing. So we moved out at 16 years old, and we lived on the streets for a bit, and then we formed community and happy families. We were able to build our society of French-speaking rebels in Atlantic Canada. 1755 is when the English finally decided to deport the Acadian communities across the world. That trauma in history has been passed down, but today we fight for the language and the culture and a lot of cool stuff. It's Chiquitamea here, and coming live from my bedroom in Moncton, New Brunswick, in one of the many pumping hearts of l'Acadie. Welcome. In 2019, like, what's an Acadian? As an artist, my queerness was really, really important to put to the forefront. But then I also started realizing that my Acadianness was really important to put to the forefront. One day there was an event, and some of my drag queen friends from Fredericton were in town, and I was like, can you put me in drag? And I was their little drag baby, and they're my drag matantes. And my version of drag is all about self-expression and performance and identity. So what I mean by that is, like, anyone should try out drag, but I also think that drag is an important art form and space for queer people. It's like we do this for a reason. I do this for a reason, anyways, which is to, like, give myself permission. If I can go out in this armor and be the most queer self that I can imagine or create or perform, then me facing the pressures of society is so much easier. Chiquita is, I've said it so many times, but the cross between a clown and a blow-up doll. And what I mean by that is I allow myself to be super comfortable in my sexuality on stage, all the while being, like, funny and having a good time and making people laugh on stage. I think performance and comedy is such a freaking amazing tool to pass a message, because they're laughing, they're having fun, they're enjoying themselves, so the work is in the background. So then the next time you interact with someone who's queer and Acadian, like, you've already witnessed that, you've already lived that exchange. I think mashing those two identities together allows for, like, an endless well of inspiration and possibilities, because you can take anything out of Acadian culture and ask yourself, what would that look like if it were queer? And then all of a sudden, you get to create something that has never been created. And vice versa, if you take something out of queer culture and you ask yourself, what if that was French or Acadian? How would that be different?
Je pense pas que je continuerai de me laisser faire comme ça. Je pense qu'il est temps que je me réveille, que mon cadran sonne. Et tant tes conneries arrêtent de taper dans la gueule. Arrête d'épingler les affiches de mes défauts sur les murs que t'as construits.
I think my hope for the future is that people recognize that you can be queer, you can be whatever you want to be. You don't have to go to a big city. You don't have to give up parts of your culture to celebrate another part of your identity. As queer people, or as francophones, or as both in my case, we are shown that like throughout history we've been marginalized and assimilated into either straight culture or English culture. I don't talk about linguistic duality or like marginalization. I don't talk about it. I just live a version of my Acadian identity that's like super out there. Which in naturally just like shows that I'm not a victim of any of that oppression or any of that marginalization. I'm choosing to look beyond the history of our deportation and the history of our trauma and looking towards the future.
Wow. There we go. So that was our very first episode of tonight. Thank you so much to our producer. We're going to bring back in some folks here now as we've got a quick moment before we move on to the next, onto our next one. I mean, I've got to comment onto it because, I mean, for me personally, especially growing up and living in and working in a rural location, that comment, you don't have to give up part of your culture to be queer. I mean, what a statement to make, knowing full well that like in the experiences that I've had and I've heard from other folk that's almost something that they have to do here. So to hear that it can be something else is huge.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree with you on that. It's nice to hear like all the upbringing influences coming through, and that Arcadian one really hit that hard.
Yeah, and that's definitely been sort of present across the board. Like we tried to do episodes that weren't necessarily just in Toronto or Montreal or Vancouver. Like we have one in Kelowna, we have one in Lethbridge, and a bunch on the East Coast in smaller communities. And it just shows a lot about how powerful it can be for you to do exactly what Chiquita did, which is sort of stay there and influence the people who live there in terms of sort of sticking to your roots and adapting them into such a powerful performance.
Mm-hmm. I also think that calling yourself, describing herself as a clown / blow up doll is the best thing I've ever heard. So
I was about to say, although it's kind of in a joking way, it began the same way, talking about the intersectionality of drag and art with being queer, and then also then identifying as Acadian, and then how is that all mixed together, and how is that represented through drag? I mean, very interesting things, and I think probably happens all over. And I don't know, Peter, if you've noticed that from going across Canada. Is this something that happens? Like, do individual cultures seem to pop up in drag performance?
Yeah, I mean, especially with a lot of new Canadians or first generation Canadians will sort of bring their culture from the countries that they came from, and that's a really interesting way to sort of put that into drag. And then also with respect to specific communities, I think the episode you just watched is probably the best example of that, because Acadian culture is sort of very unique to a specific region in Canada. But yeah, like in some of the Montreal episodes, there's lots of like Quebecois culture that is embedded in it, and I think it's very important for a lot of these queens and kings to do that.
There we go. We do have some comments coming in from our live stream. Cindy is popping in here saying, "That was so interesting. I lived in northern New Brunswick for many years and visited the Acadian Peninsula. They really have a unique and proud culture." So a viewer here, and full disclosure, Cindy is also one of our committee members, saying the same. And Bernadine Noonan, just with a straight up awesome and there's nothing wrong with that either. We will take that all day long. So thank you, Bernadine, for watching. All right, folks, Michelle and Peter, do you want to set us up for the next episode that we're going to watch?
Sure.
Yes, we do.
All right, so what's
well, this one is, most applicable to Fogo Island Pride because it's based in Newfoundland. So I will say that.
Yeah, Irma Gerd is a St. John's queen. By day, I believe an artist, a sort of visual artist, which you'll see in the episode. They're just a really fun, inspiring figure that we shot this episode in the winter, so it's just beautifully sort of shows the landscapes of St. John's. I really love this episode. I think it's just really fun and sweet, and Irma's just a really sort of iconically Newfoundlandian queen, I'd say.
That is an excellent way to describe her, I think. And having grown up in Newfoundland and being downtown at the Zone, I'm going to date myself for a second here now, in the middle of the winter, it takes nerve to be down there in the middle of winter and put on a show. So I'm going to look to my producer. Are we good to go for that next episode? And a quick reminder too, yes, I'm getting the nod, that questions can be brought in through our Facebook stream, also through Twitter. So comments, questions, throw them up there. We are going to have a longer stretch of questions after this episode. So get them in there and we'll take care of them. All right, folks. So it looks like we're ready to gear up for the next episode. Yes? Give me a thumbs up. All right. So see you folks in a little bit.
My name is Irma Gerd, and I live in St. John's, Newfoundland. Irma, oh my god, she's a party girl. She's kooky, she's fun. She's me. Jason is a bit more calm and reserved, sometimes. And Irma is like always out to have a good time. She's an extrovert where Jason is more inside. And when I become Irma, I can feel that transformation. It's really fun. You sit down at your makeup table and it's like a couple hours later, you're somebody else. I guess one thing that drew me to drag was the idea that you could become someone else. As a kid, I did always love dressing up, but I was bullied a lot as like a youth. And that really put me in a shell that took a long time to break out of. So then I moved to Toronto and started doing drag and moved back here. And that whole journey really just turned me into the person that I think I originally was. It brought me back to my true self that I hid for a long time. My family is very accepting of me doing drag. I think it took them a little while for them to say like, oh, that's weird, but then kind of click in and say like, oh, but I think this is like important. I'm not just in my room playing with makeup and wig, putting this message out there that you can be who you want to be and you can play with your identity and you don't have to commit to being one person. You can be whoever you want to be, and that doesn't have to be a permanent thing. Slide the butt into place. People might not know that there's so much truth in drag. You know, I put on a layer of spackle and lashes and like nails and wig, and it's like all these things to cover up what I look like. But I sometimes feel like more myself when I have them all on. I mean, I think it's really important for anyone anywhere to have a community. And I think in the queer spectrum, there's a lot of people who don't feel represented. And there's like, you know, there's a gay bar in town, but we've been trying to make our spaces operate as a queer-friendly bar, not just gays. That means like not just homosexual men. It's anyone who wants to come celebrate who they are, their own identity, and that's drag lets you do that. Being a drag queen and putting my face all over the media, knowing that that's helping younger people, or like the chance that they might be like sitting in their grandmother's living room and see this on the news, like that's heartwarming to me. And yeah, I wish that I had that when I was younger. My performances are energetic, but campy. I like surprising people, I think, is what it is. So, like, people think they know where the performance is going to go, and then I like to take a little left turn somewhere that usually gets people going. I like that. Performing makes me happy. That's kind of like the bottom line there. It's like I live for it. It's this whole combination of creating something, putting it to stage, having people see it, and also just the act of bringing people together in a bar to celebrate their queerness. I've started thinking about documentation a lot, and how a lot of queer history has not been recorded or has been destroyed, etc. And my art practice now is about documenting my own queer narrative of doing drag, and trying to make it last longer than just like Instagram stories or Snapchats or whatever. I'm trying to physically capture my face in drag. So I take a makeup wipe and take it off like Jesus did, you know, like the Shroud of Turin. And so I have this face of makeup on a wipe, and run that through an intaglio press, which is like a fine art tool, and transfer it to paper. And then I have this archival print of physically my face. So it's not like a photograph. It's like, this is physically the face that I was wearing. Makeup transferred onto paper. I don't know, it's been a lot of fun. I've gotten to create a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have if I never stumbled into drag. And I always wanted to create art that was queer in some way. And now I am the art piece. I perform it.
I love her so much. Oh my God, there's so many great things to talk about there. And again, middle of winter in St. John's. I would say, so, our apologies for the hard transition back. Didn't ease out there at all, did we? One thing I do want to jump in here before the questions start and before you folks take it away. We did have a question earlier about where people can watch this series too, and I think we really do need to say this is a CBC production. It's available on YouTube and on CBC Gym. Yes, and yeah, and so long as you're in Canada, I believe you can get CBC Gym and you can see these episodes free of charge.
Yes, so. cbc.ca/Canada's a Drag will bring you to the Gem page. And then the YouTube pages are available if you just search for it, I guess. And they're available to anybody in the world. But
there
Gem
you go. Awesome. All right. Well, I'll let you take it away, Michelle. I don't want to take up all the conversation. I just want to say, like, I'm in love with Irma Gerd. I was actually talking about to Evan here while the episode was going on, and if I remember correctly, because there used to be contest, a drag race that would happen down at the Zone in downtown St. John's. And I remember Irma was actually invited to one of those contests when they were very young, because it was like an upcoming star in the drag world. And it's so great to see that she's so different by comparison to what it was when I first met her. So the change and the evolution is definitely there. It's great to see.
Yeah.
All right, Michelle, I'll pass it over to you, because I know you've got a bevy of questions, and again, we'll be monitoring the chat online. So if there are any questions out there on Facebook or what have you, throw them out there, and we'll bring them up for you folks.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, watching that episode, I've seen it before, but watching it again, I've never met Irma, but what an artist. The whole process of documenting everything she's doing is really inspiring. And there's like a couple things Irma said, like, I wish I had that when I was younger. And I think that's relatable for a lot of us. That's like a huge reason why I joined Pride, like those type of foundations that we all need.
Yeah.
So that's just cool. So that's just like my note of what I want to share about the episode.
Yes. I was just going to say it's a very sweet and special episode. And Irma's just like such a great personality to have on camera. It just translates so nicely.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Peter, time for the hard-hitting questions.
Sure. I'm ready, Michelle.
Thanks so much for doing this again.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So I guess just, now living somewhere like totally rural, I'm wondering, like, what was some of your biggest challenges you guys came across trying to go to these smaller remote locations and finding queens?
Finding them was the challenge, because so basically how it worked is myself and my co-producer, Mercedes Grundy, who's a lovely, talented woman, we came up with this idea, and basically we didn't have the budget for us to actually go anywhere. So we're stationed in Toronto, so I had to reach out to pride groups, gay bars, anything I could find in these various cities to figure out who these queens and kings that we could document might be. And then me and Mercedes would, each season, there's 3 seasons that started in 2017, we'd basically just like hop on the phone with all of these queens and kings, and we'd narrow a list of 150 down to 30, down to the 10 or 11 that we'd end up documenting. And then we have to find, like, this Irma Gerd episode is directed by a really great local filmmaker named Leanne Morrison. We had to find ideally queer filmmakers in each of these communities who could make each episode, because we wanted the episodes not just to represent the performers in those communities, we wanted them to represent the filmmaking communities as well. So it was a lot, especially for the first season, to like just figure out who these people might be and who we could trust and who would do a good job. And we were really sort of grateful in the end that it ended up, most people really did do a good job, and most of these performers had these incredible stories, like you guys just saw. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I've watched a lot of the episodes, and there's like definitely a lot of times where you might want a Kleenex box. There's so much heart, like that brings their art forward. So, yeah, that's nice.
I mean, there was like a lot of stories of extreme resilience. Like, there's a lot of the queens and kings we featured went through a lot of trauma, whether it was addiction issues or neglect from their family, or just sort of emotional violence from their family, and to rise from the ashes to become these pillars of the art form in their communities it was really, really inspiring to watch. We did one in Kelowna with a very young queen that I think was maybe like 21, and just a year prior, their family was, I think, Mormon. I could be wrong. No, it was. It's something similar to Mormon, but it's not Mormon. But it's a really nasty religion to queer people, and their family kicked them out. And within a year, they were sort of Kelowna's top queen and had sort of built their own community and life without a family. And it's just, some of this stuff to me seems insurmountable, but to watch people sort of take on these challenges and thrive despite them is incredible.
Definitely. And like it also turns them into role models too. So, you know, you're like taking on a responsibility, and that's, I don't know, that's nice to see.
Yeah, it was Jehovah's Witness. I just remembered. That's what.
Okay. Good. So, I mean, I have another question, but you kind of partially already answered it, is like, how did you become part of the show, and like what kind of drove you to want to become part of it? But you and Mercedes came up with the idea together, or can?
Yeah, so I mean, we have like monthly meetings to come up with ideas for series or whatever we're going to produce at CBC Arts, and it was kind of just came on the fly, where I just thought that at that point there was no Canada's Drag Race, and also, you know, the Drag Race machine, which has evolved to include a more diverse sort of array of representation in terms of like trans people and bio queens and drag kings, and we have a couple people who identify as drag things because they're non-binary and don't want to necessarily. I just felt like there was so much to explore in this country, so I just thought, why not make a little documentary series about Canada's sort of really sort of unique and special communities of drag performers, and that's just kind of where the idea came initially, and then we just started seeking them out and finding who these queens and kings would be, and queens and kings and things. So we've done 31 episodes now, and it's kind of been on hold since everything went down, because it's just not the same, obviously. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's just, I don't know. I guess sometimes it's like easy to think narrow, like living in such a big city, and you kind of, you know, I'm just obviously talking from like personal experience now, but I'm like, oh yeah, like, I wonder if there's queens on Fogo Island, or, you know, the smaller communities. And it's nice to see that portrayed in the show, just how it's everywhere, you know?
Yeah, and like I think initially it came from just my experience in Toronto, seeing so many performers that represented communities or represented identities that you just weren't seeing in this sort of increasing mainstream of drag. And then for me to and for Mercedes together to go out and start to see all these stories from these other communities, and you know, I felt like I got to know communities that I've never been to. I've never been to Lethbridge's gay scene. I perhaps never will, but I do feel like I kind of have a sense of what it's like. So yeah, I think it's interesting just from a geographical perspective to not just get to know the queens and kings, but get to know the communities that they sort of represent, because there's you know, this country's so vast and we don't get to go visit everywhere, but it's nice to sort of get an idea.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so we'll wrap this up a bit. Just like two minor last questions. One being is, can we expect a season 4?
It's on permanent hiatus, but I think there probably will be one. We just don't really know how to approach it. I think about a month ago we thought we'd be able to start doing it soon, but then it seems like things are getting bad again. So we don't really know. And I didn't want to do like a Zoom. No, with all respect to what we're doing right now, I didn't want to do like a Zoom season. I just felt like I think for drag performers, this past year and a half has been really challenging and really sad. And they've adapted and done incredible things on the internet or outside. But I just felt like I love when this pandemic is over, which I hope it's going to be, to do a season that's really about rising from the ashes of this and like how we rebuild. Because, you know, a lot of the bars that we featured in this across these 3 seasons, they've closed because of the pandemic. So it's just, I think there's a really big amount of rebuilding that we're going to have to do. And I'd love to sort of profile the queens and kings that are doing it in their communities when we get a chance to, you know, rebuild.
Yes, 100%. Okay, so let's say season 4 is a go ahead. Who's like someone you'd really like to see featured?
I honestly don't know yet, because we haven't really gone through and I feel like who we featured in these 3 seasons is who we wanted to feature, and I'm really proud of that. But there's communities that we haven't featured that I'd really love to feature. We haven't done anything in PEI. We haven't done anything in Saskatchewan. We haven't done anything in the territories, which I'd love to see what's going on there. So it's kind of like I usually think about the where first, and then go to that community in any way I can to see who the possible people might be. So I just feel like we haven't, touched on so many places in this country that I'd love to understand, what's going on in Regina or what's going on in Whitehorse. So yeah, that would kind of be the initial sort of drive in terms of like what we do next.
Yeah. Cool. Well, this has been really fun, and thank you again.
No, thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, it's fun. Oh, look, here comes Trevor.
And I'm back. Well, thank you so much again, Peter. I did want to say I'm in the back of my head going, I wonder if because right now we're importing our drag talent. 2 nights, 2 nights from now, we're going to have all these queens coming out from St. John's to have a performance here at our Lions Club. So yeah, when Fogo Island's drag scene takes off, I will send you an email. I'll reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
There we go. I would like nothing more but to see what Fogo Island's take on drag would be. I imagine it would be very, very unique, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. We did have some comments come in there. Just want to, I guess, make a note of those folks before we let y'all go. Bernadine. Oh, sorry, wrong way. I started at the wrong end of it. Johnny D. Was just saying, I wish I was there to see the show. And sending some love from Stony Creek, Ontario. Abby Decker, who is actually a student here at the school, or now a graduate.
Trevor's the principal.
I am the principal at school. Abby's question was actually answered, like literally as you were. It was your question of where the idea came from. Katrina Tompkins is sending her love as way. Love this, Peter. Thank you so much. And Cindy was commenting on Irma's hair, because it was fierce and it was great. All right. So again, thank you so much, Peter. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, Michelle, for taking up the torch. It's never easy to go on a live stream, is it? Right, Peter. Oh, licked. All right. And Peter, I'm sure we can get something special sent to you from Fogo Island. I'm getting the nod, so expect something as a thank you from us. We might need to know your t-shirt size. And Abby is sending out the thanks for sharing this tonight. It was great. So thanks, Abby. Thanks for watching. And we'll let Michelle and Peter get backstage. Again, thank you so much. Any final words before we send you back?
No, just thank you so much for having me. It's been really nice.
Awesome. Yourself, Michelle?
Oh, yeah. Happy Pride.
There we go.
Thanks to everyone for commenting, and Peter and Trevor and all of us. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. We will let you go, and Evan can keep me in the stream to round things out here tonight. All right. My God, I'm here sweating to death on Fogo Island. Imagine that would ever happen. All right, folks. So it's been a full night. We've got some great events that are coming up. We've got our karaoke tomorrow. Raymond's Pub. We've got our drag night happening on Friday, starting at when? 8 o'clock? Doors open 8 o'clock-ish. I'm getting the ish signal there. We actually have most of our tickets sold for that event, so registration is required. We've got capacity limits. We've got to make sure that we keep. So if you haven't got your tickets, get them. You can find them online on our Facebook page, our website, and through Eventbrite is where we have them all too. So, folks, we will let you go. We hope you enjoyed the show tonight, and we hope to see you out to enjoy Pride on Fogo Island 2021. Take care.